Double-Edged Destiny, a Fractures AU by Doglover61402 / The Christian Ninja. Chapter 3. Destiny Decided. The time is immediately after Cold as Ice, and the setting is the Frostbourne capital city. The Ender Dragon upon which Rain rode soared back toward the Frostbourne capital. The fascinating creature had just carried Rain out of the mysterious End Dimension toward his old hometown of Glacierford and back to the scene of a battle. A few hours ago, an army of Endermen had attacked the Frostbourne capital suddenly, but now, the strange beings he had seen in the End had come to the overworld to order their Endermen to cease from attacking. The dragon, which Rain had no idea how to control, flew toward them. As soon as it landed behind these beings, Rain jumped down from its back. With his feet on the ground, Rain studied the chaotic city. Some parts of it had been burned by the dragon's fire breath, and black plumes of smoke darkened the air around the city. Dead bodies of both humans and Endermen littered the ground, while live soldiers from both races wandered around the battlefield, confused by its sudden ending. Rain cast an irritated glance at the newest arrivals. A tall Enderman wearing a crown and holding a staff, a black and white Enderman crawling on all fours, and a girl in a hoodie carrying a large sword. He easily determined that they were responsible for this battle. They conversed amongst each other urgently and quietly, and Rain focused all his attention on eavesdropping. However, they spoke in a language he could not understand, and their words resembled the echoing screeches he had heard from the Endermen. Rain already knew that he would never like this group. He had already experienced one horrifying attack on his hometown, and now they had forced him to relive that event in his new home. At least this time, Rain had no friends and family to lose in battle. "Undead soldier!" Patrick's angry voice traveled down the street. All eyes turned to look at him, including the newcomers. Rain glanced behind him. He disliked Patrick, but the soldier could at least tolerate this man better than the strange newcomers. Rain's boss motioned for him to come closer. Begrudgingly, Rain approached him. "What do you want?" "Some nerve you have, disobeying my orders on the battlefield. I told you to attack their dragon, not follow it into an unknown world. You're just lucky things turned out fine," Patrick said. He was seething with anger, but he kept his tone of voice fairly low. "What do you mean things turned out fine? We've got those freaks of nature over there." Rain pointed at the strange group. A nearby Enderman soldier shot an angry glance at him, but Rain ignored it. Rain knew that Patrick's words were true. He did disobey direct orders. His boss had commanded him to attack and kill the dragon since, as the Frostbourne's undead super soldier, he was the strongest member of the army. However, Patrick had never shown kindness to Rain or even used his real name. He had decided to find and protect Azura, since she had always treated Rain nicely. An encounter with an Enderman trying to attack the scientists on her rooftop laboratory resulted in Rain gaining an Ender Pearl. With this object, he teleported himself into the End. There, he expected to fight the Ender Dragon. However, he had suddenly felt a strange bond with it. He tamed the beast, thus ending the battle. Rain hoped Patrick would at least show some appreciation for this action. "Just shut up!" Patrick said. He stepped closer to Rain. Clearly, he had no gratitude for Rain's actions. "We'll talk about this later, undead soldier. You will be punished for your disobedience." Rain rolled his eyes. He had grown accustomed to Patrick disrespecting him. In his boss's eyes, Rain was nothing more than a super soldier, reduced to his job description. "Whatever, just tell me what's with those weird people over there. Are we going to attack them or something?" Again, the nearby Enderman glared at him. Rain realized that he was probably insulting his leaders, but he did not care. He had no respect for the freaks that had ordered an attack on an innocent city. They reminded him of Herobrine, the leader of the undead, whose attack had caused the death of all Rain's friends, family, and neighbors. Patrick's eyes grew wide. He shot a nervous glance at the group Rain had just called weird. They were still locked in a heated conversation with one another. "Don't say that!" he hissed through clenched teeth. Rain raised an eyebrow at Patrick, unable to figure out why his insults of the newcomers worried his boss so much. Why? I just want to know what's up with the one normal Enderman, the funny-looking black and white Enderman, and the weird girl with purple hair. He held up his hands defensively, wondering why Patrick had not already ordered an attack. He jumped when Patrick gripped his shoulders. Undead soldier, do you know who they are? Patrick raised his voice slightly. His tone was still lower than it usually was when Patrick lectured Rain. I don't know, I saw them in the end, but I kind of ignored them. Patrick shook Rain violently. Those are the Ender Watchers! He took a deep breath. And excitement washed over his face. I never thought I would see them, let alone have the chance to negotiate an alliance with them. Rain laughed. Ha! Ender Watchers! What a stupid name. As soon as he said this, the Ender Watchers' conversation stopped, and they stared at him in shock. Rain crossed his arms over his chest and stared back. Patrick grabbed Rain and violently twisted him so that the soldier could not make direct eye contact with the Ender Watchers. Don't you dare stare at them! Patrick yelled as he punched Rain. Gah! Rain fell to the ground with Patrick's blow. He quickly jumped to his feet, refusing to stay down. What? Am I gonna hurt their feelings by staring at them? Rain yelled in an angry, mocking tone. He heard the crowd behind him murmuring. He did not care if his behavior was hostile. He just wanted Patrick to leave him alone and get rid of the Ender Watchers. Just shut up with the questions! Patrick barked. Chuckles rippled through the crowd when he said this. He glanced at the Ender Watchers briefly, avoiding direct eye contact. The purple-haired Ender Watcher smirked. No! One more question! Rain retorted. His face was turning red in anger and embarrassment, especially when he saw the smile on Patrick's face. Their laughter pleased his boss, and Rain knew that most of the soldiers did not like him. Ever since he had woken up from a zombified state to be an undead super soldier, he had been the laughingstock of the army and a victim of their bullying. However, the smirk on the weird girl's face irked him more than anything else. What's with the funny-looking human one with the weird hair? Is she their secretary or something? Rain could not understand why the secretary had been brought to the battlefield. Dead silence filled the crowd. Obviously, Rain's comments were inappropriate. He stole a look at her face, finding it red with anger. A victorious smirk replaced the embarrassed face he had put on moments ago. The girl's fist was shaking and her teeth gritted, but the normal Enderman put his hand on her shoulder and said something in a different language. She turned away with her arms folded over her chest. This reaction pleased Rain. However, that happiness was short-lived. Patrick punched the left side of his head, sending him to the ground. Shut up, undead soldier! Patrick yelled at full volume. He pointed toward a nearby officer. Lieutenant Bob Hunter, escort undead soldier back inside, but don't let him out of your sight. Yes, sire, Lieutenant Hunter said. He approached Rain and Patrick and grabbed the rude soldier off the ground, half dragging the disgruntled soldier into the castle. The time is a few hours later. Rain slouched in his assigned seat in the conference room of the Frostbourne castle. Patrick had decided that Rain would be a part of the alliance meeting with the Ender Watchers since he had tamed their dragon. He crossed his arms over his torso and stared grumpily at the ceiling. He felt Patrick's iron glare fixed on him, causing him to straighten his posture to avoid another argument. Currently, only he, Patrick, Lady Azura, and two Enderman generals sat in the room. The Endermen resided on the opposite side of the table, while Patrick sat between Rain and Azura. They waited for Sir Theo, the Frostbourne Grandmaster, and the Ender Watchers to arrive. You tell him. I don't think he'll listen if I tell him, Patrick whispered to Azura. The two of them had been having a quiet conversation while they waited for their superiors to arrive. Rain had not bothered to listen until now. All right, Azura whispered back. She cleared her throat and looked at Rain. Rain, I know you said some rather mean things about our honored guest today. Just so we're clear, please do not speak during the meeting unless spoken to. Let Sir Theo, Patrick, and the Ender Watchers lead this meeting." Her tone was respectful, and she ended her statement with a smile, trying to encourage Rain to cooperate during the meeting. Rain's expression softened a little. Azura had always been kind to him, unlike Patrick. When she spoke to him, he usually listened. However, he saw no reason for his presence in the room. "Well, why am I here then?" He tried to sound polite, but his voice carried frustration. He was tired from the battle, and the argument he had had with Patrick and the constant cycle of disrespect and bullying he received in the Frostbourne ranks. To make matters worse, he did not want to see the Ends rulers who had attacked his town earlier. He could not look at them without being reminded of Herobrine and what had happened to his loved ones months ago. He also dreaded having to see the secretary again, since she wanted to punch him. Rain would much rather isolate himself with a punching bag than be in this meeting. Azura seemed to be puzzled by his statement. "Isn't the reason obvious? You're the dragon tamer. You must be important to them, especially since one of the Ender Watchers specifically asked for you to be here." Rain rolled his eyes. "Please tell me it wasn't that human one. I'm pretty sure she wants to punch me." He was convinced that if he ever found himself alone with the secretary, she would beat him to death. Azura covered her mouth to prevent herself from laughing. After a moment, she opened her mouth to reply to Rain, but then a guard entered the room. The guard cleared his throat. "All rise. Presenting Sir Theo, Grand Master of the Frostbourne and the Ender Watchers, Dragon Seer Lord Fortis, and Dancer Lord Zeganern, and End Matriarch Ceris." The leaders entered the room in the order the guard had listed them. Sir Theo took his seat at the head of the conference table, while the Ender Watchers sat on the side opposite of Rain. Rain slouched back into his chair as soon as everyone received permission to sit. He shot a glance across the table, finding that Ceris was sitting across from him. He huffed and cast his gaze at the table, trying to avoid the death glare radiating from the other side of the table. Matriarch, he thought. What is that, a fancy term for secretary? Sir Theo stood up and swept his eyes across the conference room. "We are gathered here under unusual circumstances. Just hours ago, the Frostbourne Ender Watchers were enemies. However, in light of what our undead soldier did today," Theo looked straight at Rain, who grimaced, "it appears that we may be able to form an alliance. First, may we have an explanation as to why our city was attacked earlier?" He motioned his hands toward the Ender Watchers. Fortis rose. "Thank you, Grandmaster Theo, for the invitation to form an alliance with you. I do agree that our actions earlier need to be explained. We had been operating on some faulty information. Our most reliable sources indicated that the Frostbourne was raising an army composed completely of undead soldiers and mages with the ability to open portals. We were informed that your nation would be attacking our capital city, Dragonspire." "An army of undead soldiers?" Rain said. He put his elbow on the table and rested his chin on top of his hand. "Ha! These people can hardly figure out how to make even one undead soldier, let alone a whole army. There were 6 failed attempts before me. Your sources were definitely pretty dumb, like you guys." Although calling the visitors across the table dumb gave Rain joy, his happiness quickly turned to guilt. He heard Azura gasp, making him realize that he had insulted her hard work. He knew he would have to apologize to her later. Patrick narrowed his eyes. "Shut it, undead soldier!" he hissed through his teeth as he draped an arm across Azura's shoulders. The following silence in the room felt awkward. Azura was upset, Patrick was angry, and Ceris looked ready to punch Rain. As I was saying," Fortis said, drawing everyone's attention away from Rain's comments, He is correct to say that there is only one undead soldier, and from what we have seen, there are no mages in your ranks. It would appear that this information was very faulty. Vortis ended by glancing at the table in shame. Patrick rose from the table and bowed respectfully. He cautiously kept his eye contact from directly meeting the Enderwatchers. Forgive me if I speak without permission, but the Frostbourne has hired a few mages in past years. Currently, we only have one, a mercenary witch, but she is currently on a trip to our border to work on a protection spell. However, we have no intention of including them in the army in the manner your sources suggest. He sat back down and placed his arm on Azura once more. Vortis nodded. Thank you for the clarification. We are launching an internal investigation to find out if our informants are acting maliciously. We humbly ask that our actions be forgiven. Ceris and Zeganern rose to stand with Vortis, and the trio respectfully bowed to signify their apology. Sir Theo now stood and bowed in response. We do accept this apology. Although it was a terrible day for our nation, we do understand that situations like this, happen. And our soldiers' actions suggest that we should not be enemies. Now, shall we discuss the terms of our alliance? As the Frostbourne leaders and Ender Watchers discussed their alliance, Rain zoned himself out, losing all focus on the meeting. Rain had no interest in being friends with the freaks, and he also did not know anything about constructing an alliance. The soldier allowed his mind to wander, completely missing the discussion. He thought of his hometown, Glacierford. His old friends, Abigail and his brother, traveled into his brain. They had escaped the city with him, but all of them had died before his eyes. He vividly recalled the zombies biting his closest friends and younger brother, but the strongest and worst memory of them all started with an arrow. He could see the arrow heading for his precious Abigail. His memories ended before the arrow met his girlfriend. At this point, his own zombification finished, dragging him away from reality. His broken mind told him to cry and grieve once more, but he had no tears left after 5 months of living in the Frostbourne castle without his friends. He also refused to cry during this dreadful meeting. Rain desperately hoped that it would be over soon so he could release his emotions on a punching bag. Perhaps it would be best if Undead Soldier explained this part. Patrick's voice broke through Rain's zoned-out mind. Explain what? Rain said as he sat up quickly, having missed the entire conversation. Are you deaf? Patrick groaned. We've been talking about why we think this alliance is a good idea. Oh, Rain said. His expression dropped to a frown. Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. Rain looked at Sir Theo while pointing at the Enderwatchers. Sire, those freaks just attacked us! They messed up our city and took many lives today! Were you even listening when we explained our reasoning for that? Ceres snapped. She jumped to her feet and pointed at Rain. This was the first time Rain had heard her speak since he had not even listened to the conversation until now. Her voice was low, but Rain was not sure whether this was due to the anger radiating from her or her normal tone. Vortis put his hand on her shoulder and firmly pushed her back into the seat. Calm down, he said quietly. Rain, that's not what we were asking you to explain, Azura said in a frustrated tone. The scientist still seemed mad about his earlier remarks. We would like you to explain how you tamed the Ender Dragon. All eyes turned to Rain. He shrugged. I don't know what I did. I just felt, connected to it. I wanted it to stop attacking us, and it listened to me. Everyone remained silent after he said this. Sir Theo scratched his head. Azura looked confused, and Patrick seemed unimpressed. A small part of Rain wished that Patrick would at least be proud of him for taming a dragon, but he expected this dull reaction. The Enderwatchers glanced at each other. Ceres took a deep breath. and stood up again. This time, she spoke in a neutral tone. It is as I suspected. Years ago, I experienced the same thing. A special connection to the dragons. In those days, there were far more dragons in the end, but they have since been hunted down, mostly by pirates. The dragon he tamed earlier is the last one remaining. Her voice betrayed a bit of sadness for some reason. Really? Rain muttered under his breath. A secretary taming dragons? Despite the quietness of his comments, everyone had heard him. He saw a red-faced Ceres take a deep breath to calm herself down. Rain half wished she would just punch him so that this meeting and the alliance could be ended. What is the significance of him taming the dragon? Theo said awkwardly, attempting to steer the conversation away from Rain's rude remarks. He is now part of an important prophecy. He and I share the same destiny, Ceres said with a tone that indicated she loathed this destiny in Rain. In time, we will have the same power and... So I have to share my destiny with a secretary? Great! Wonderful! Rain yelled sarcastically. He was angry now. His life had been defined by others ever since that fateful day in Glacierford. Now, his destiny was being decided once more, and he already despised the person with whom he shared his fate. Ceres' jaw dropped, and she stayed quiet for a moment. Oh yeah? Do you think I like sharing mine with someone like you? Her voice now had an echo effect, causing it to reverberate throughout the room. Well, at least it makes a bit more sense for me to be a dragon tamer. I'm a soldier. You're just some dumb office lady who couldn't figure out what you shouldn't let your bosses attack an innocent nation. Rain slammed a fist on the table. Do you seriously think I'm the secretary? She, too, slammed her fist on the table. Well, duh, idiot. Zeganern, the quiet black and white Enderman who had not spoken yet, stood up. You would be wise to stop referring to the Queen as a secretary or an idiot, young man. This Enderman spoke in a hiss. Wait, you're not really the secretary? You're actually the Queen? Rain exclaimed, genuinely shocked. Ceres huffed in anger, while no one spoke. The air in the room felt tight, with intense anger burning between Rain and Ceres. All eyes were turned to Rain once more. This time, everyone was mad at him. That's it, undead soldier, Patrick growled. Get out of here! We'll talk about this later. 2 guards came up and grabbed Rain. They practically dragged him out of the room. He cast one more angry glance at the Ender Watchers before complying with the guards. They shoved him out of the conference room and escorted him to his bedroom. Isolated in his own space, Rain broke down on the floor. Life gradually kept getting worse for Rain. First he had lost everyone, everything. Next he had become a super soldier against his wishes, surrounded by constant bullying and hatred from others in the Frostbourne. Now, his fate was being sealed by a group of people from another dimension. Rain curled himself into a ball and sobbed. He remained in this position for several minutes, letting the hopelessness he felt overwhelm him. Slowly, Rain picked his head up off the floor. He looked at the bookshelf on the left side of his room. 3 pictures sat on this bookshelf. Rain used to have a habit of shoving pictures into the pocket of his hoodie. These 3 had been with him when he ran from Herobrine, and fortunately, they had remained in his hoodie throughout the entire ordeal. They had suffered a little damage, but he still framed them proudly. One picture showed his beautiful girlfriend. Another picture featured her next to him, and the last picture showed his brother. You're all dead, he whispered to the images. Both of you and everyone else. I'm surrounded by so many people, but I still feel alone. My destiny keeps getting decided by others. I just wish you 2 were here. I wish none of this had happened. Rain stared at his late girlfriend and brother in silence, not moving a muscle. Finally, Rain rose from the floor and stumbled to his bed. Although it was only 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he felt exhausted. The battle, the meeting, the constant arguments, and the weight of his mental health drained all his energy away. He fell asleep, but his rest was short-lived, ending when someone knocked on his door.